Hello and welcome to December. So the first thing that I'm going to look at today, I didn't actually start in December, I started in November, and it's this cardigan. So I have had a bit of trouble with this. If you follow me on Instagram or any of the other social medias, you probably will have seen me post about it. So the yarn that I am making this out of is yarn that I reclaimed from two cardigans, or boleros, two other jumpery things that I made previously, which I don't wear very often. So I took the yarn back and I wasn't sure what I was going to do with them, but as I saw the yarn sort of stacked up next to each other, I thought they looked quite nice and it might be nice to make a striped cardigan out of them. So I knew that I wanted it to be stockinette stitch rather than garter stitch, and my choices were either make it as a cardigan with the front opening already open, or knit it as if it's a jumper and then cut it up the middle, steek it to create that opening for the cardigan. I decided on doing the jumper style, so I've made it like a raglan jumper where I've started at the neck, done the increases into the shoulders and then separated the arms and the body. The issue that I have with it is that I needed more of the pink yarn. I only needed a little bit more really, maybe only 100 grams more, just to make it a little bit longer because I wanted a slightly longer cardigan. But when I went to go and buy more of the pink yarn, it was out of stock. So I wasn't entirely sure what I was going to do at that point, so I kind of kept going, but I was pausing it every now and then to see what I wanted to do. And I got almost all the way to the end. I went to have a look and see if the pink yarn was back in stock yet. It wasn't, but then also by this time, the purple was out of stock. So I waited a couple of weeks, the purple was back in stock, the pink won't be back in stock for at least a couple of months yet. I wasn't entirely sure what I was going to do. I had to think about it and decided to just get some more of the purple yarn when it was back in stock, which I did, and then carry on with it until the point where I could finish. And then the point where I'm at with it now is that I have finished the entire thing mostly. I have also cut up the middle. I've done that steeking on it, but I'm not happy with it. I do wish that I'd waited until I could make it longer, and I kind of wish that I hadn't done it in the style that I did it. Because I don't like doing rows and rows of purl stitches, I thought doing it in the jumper and then steeking it would be a lot easier, but actually in hindsight I do wish that I'd just done it that way originally. And because I didn't think about this before doing it, I can't even undo it to try again because I've already done the steeking. So I'm going to put it aside for, I don't know, a couple of weeks, a couple of months maybe, and then see what I want to do with it. Because of all the time and effort that I have put into it already, I don't want to just abandon it altogether, but I'm also a little bit fed up of looking at it and a bit fed up of working on it. And so that I haven't wasted my time that I have put into it and the yarn that I've put into it, I'm going to put it aside for a bit and then see what I want to do. In theory, I could still pick up stitches and carry on with it longer once I do have more of the pink yarn. It'll just be that I will have to do the knit one row and purl back rather than knitting in the round because I've already steeked it. It'll be a bit annoying, but it shouldn't be impossible to do, so I might do that. I'm not making any solid plans just yet because I never know how I'm going to feel about it in the future, but I know I definitely don't want to waste the time that I've put into it. Ultimately, I might end up scrapping it, but if I can sort of save it, I would rather do that. Up next is this footstool, which I started in November and finished in December. This is basically a stash busting project because I have a lot of smaller balls of odds and ends of yarn from previous projects and whatnot. Because I don't like to throw things away, but I also like to use things up, I thought I need a good stash busting project that will use quite a lot of yarn up. And the idea was also to use a lot of the smaller scraps of yarn and material from previous projects that aren't big enough to use for anything specifically, but can be used for stuffing. So my idea was to make a floor cushion bigger than the one I made previously. I can't remember exactly when I made it, but I made it a while ago. Because that one is very wide but not very tall, I wanted something that wasn't as wide but was taller, just so I've got different options. As I was making this one, I sort of changed my mind and decided I wanted a footstool, so something instead of being about half the height of what I sit on to put my foot up slightly, I wanted something that was as tall as the seat I sit on so I can have my legs elevated. Because I wanted a tall footstool, I needed something that was going to have the rigidity or the sturdiness to not misshape when I've had my foot on it for a while, because from previous experience with my other floor cushion, I know that using stuffing like, well, cushion stuffing, anything that's made of like small pieces, they will move around when you put your foot on them, when you put weight on them and that kind of thing, when they're being used. And I didn't want something that would get misshapen and I'd have to sort of beat back into shape every now and then. And I'd considered my options, like, can I use wood or cardboard in it, perhaps have something on the inside that is more sturdy. But then I came across a website which is for a company that will cut foam to whatever size and dimensions you want. And it was, I think it came to about £30 to £40 in the end for the piece that I got. I'm quite happy with it. The only trouble is when I was doing my measurements for the bit that I crocheted, I measured a bit too well. And when I ordered it, it basically fit snugly, which turned out well in the end, but also has meant that I'm not using any of that stuff for stuffing, because I thought if I get a core of foam, so it's got that sturdiness, and then have stuff around the outside, it will be soft and squishy, but also have that sturdiness. Instead, it's just sturdy. So I'm really happy with how it turned out, even though the way that I've done things has changed along the way. I'm really happy with the outcome. It's definitely something I will do again if I need to use up stuff, so that I've got an array of different footstools and cushions and things. The next thing I also started in November was the little bags that I crocheted to put Christmas gifts in for my work colleagues. It's another stash buster, so it's quite handy for using up all the little odds and ends of sock weight yarn that I had. In fact, it was so handy in using them up that I have used up all of my sock weight yarns, so I now need to buy more. I mean, I need to buy more anyway if I want to make more socks, but you know what I mean. I've used up all the odds and ends that I had, unless there's any hiding in my big box of yarn. I crocheted these little sacks with little drawstrings on them so I could put a few treats for the people that I was giving gifts to. I made about 20 all in all. I didn't need 20, but I always make more than I think I need, so that if I have miscalculated somewhere, I hope that I won't forget anyone, and thankfully I didn't, but if I did, I had a couple of backups. So I have got a couple of those left over, which I'll probably just put aside for future gift giving opportunities. They're only very small, but if I've got a little something I'm giving to someone, then that'll work quite well. And moving on into actual December, so we did a Secret Santa in work and I took part, and the person that I got very much loves cats, so part of her gift is these cat coasters which I crocheted. I've not made them before, and I made these from a pattern I found online, and they didn't quite turn out exactly as I had expected. Like, they didn't turn out how the example picture did, but I like them anyway. I like how the yarn that I've used and its colour change lends into the spiral shape, and I really, really like them, and thankfully, and so did my recipient. This is a little desk basket I made for one of the ladies on my team at work. I have a similar one myself, which I made previously, and if you've seen the video, we'll have seen it, and it does look quite similar. I do tend to have lots of little bits and bobs that I want on my desk rather than in a drawer, but I didn't want them all over the desk, so I made my little desk tidy pot thing. The lady on my team also has bits and bobs that she wants out on her desk, but also same issue of doesn't want them just all over the place. So she asked if I could make one for her. I basically just did the same thing as I'd done before. I couldn't remember exactly what I'd done, but looking at what I had made, I figured it out from there, and it's worked out well. She's happy with it, and so am I. This is just a little gift bag that I made to start replenishing my stock of gift bags, because having just been the festive season, I've pretty much used all of them up now. I think I had one left over, and I made this one, and I will continue making more of them. This time I'm going to try and make them in a lot of varying sizes, because I found that when I was trying to assign bags for gifts, I found that there were some that were quite small, so they ended up swimming in the bag that I put it in, and so big that I couldn't fit in a bag and I had to wrap anyway. So this time I'm going to try and make a lot of different size bags. So this one's I would class it as probably medium size. It's a good way of using up yarn. Again, I love a stash buster. I love anything that I can use to sort of get rid of the bits and bobs that I've accumulated over time. Then I made this bag. I got the idea for this when I was making the footstool, and I've made it in a similar sort of method. Basically, when I made the footstool, I crocheted a hexagon, and then I just crocheted evenly up the sides so it would make it tall. And while I was making that, I had pushed it aside and it had folded in a similar way to this, and I thought, oh, that would be handy for a bag and also to use up yarn. Just put some handles on it and then it'll be like a shopping bag or a beach bag. So I made this, but I actually made it a bit smaller than I'd intended. I think I got a bit excited and started doing the straight up the sides bit before I really should have done. One of my colleagues spotted it because I'd been making it at work and said that they liked it, and I said that they could have it because ultimately it was more of a test of whether it would be a good way to make a bag and also to use up yarn. So I'm happy that she's getting use of it and that she likes it. Then I made some fingerless gloves, which have been given to someone for Christmas. I really like the pattern for this. I like how the increases look on the thumb, and I quite enjoy this pattern. I'll probably use this again in the future. I do have my own fingerless glove pattern, but this one's actually a lot easier. I really like the way that the ribbing is done on the cuff part because it's not a classic just normal knit and purl. If you knit in the back loop only, it ends up with a sort of a twist, so you get a more pronounced rib, and I really like the way that that looks, and I will probably end up using that in quite a lot of things going forward. I do like a classic rib, but I also really like the way this looks as well for some things. So that's something I've stored up in the old bread basket and will probably use on future things. This cowl was a bit of a tester for a pattern. I was hoping that I'd made it right and that it would be usable in its final form, but it was a bit short and a bit narrow. So I unravelled it, recaked it, and then put that into making this one, which is a lot longer and a lot wider and fits a lot better. So I'm really happy with how this has turned out, and I've not wasted any yarn because the yarn which I'd made the first one of is this part at the beginning and then the rest of the yarn ball is here as well. I'm really happy with how this turned out. I think I could have made it longer, and if I do make it again, I think I will make it much longer than this so that it could be just a scarf or a scarf and a hood type situation, depending on what the weather's like, because I do like a versatile, interchangeable cold weather clothing. This beanie I made because I was going to be on a couple of long car journeys and I wanted something that I could make without having to have a pattern in front of me. The cowl hadn't been finished by the time I started this, and because of the pattern in it, I would need to have that in front of me so that I didn't get the pattern wrong, basically. So I wanted something that I could do without having a pattern. So I grabbed this yarn and a crochet hook and I made this hat. Basically, the way that I made it is to make the ribbing first. It's just 10 stitches back and forth of a half double crochet, and then when that was long enough to go around my head, I attached it together and then started doing the length of it. It's turned out really well. It's really comfy, it's really warm, and I'm really happy with it, basically because it just came out of my brain. I didn't find a pattern or follow a pattern. This I just made up as I went along, and it worked and turned out well. And as mentioned before, I am trying to increase my gift bag stock, so I made this little rainbow number. I really like this yarn. I just realised this is also this yarn. As you can tell, I really like this yarn. I really like the way that the rainbow is just gradual into each other. It's not like a solid stripe. It's a really nice yarn, and I will probably buy more of it in the future and make more things with it. While I don't necessarily wear a lot of colour on a day-to-day basis, I really like this. It's really cute. Something that I did in December was I treated myself to a few crafty bits. So something that I wanted to do for a while is to buy some Harris tweed offcuts and make things out of them. So I bought the offcuts, didn't have a plan for them in general, so they're just sitting in a basket in my living room waiting for inspiration to come. And the other day I had some inspiration to make this little clasp purse. So I have the clasps already. They're something that I tend to have in my craft stash. It hasn't worked out exactly how I wanted. I wanted it to be, I think, in my head, I wanted it a bit shorter and a bit wider on the bottom, but the theory works out well, and I do have more of these clasps, so I can learn from what I've done here and make it slightly different. This will probably end up being for change or something. It's a little handy thing to put in a handbag where you've got something that you don't want to float around in your bag but also doesn't necessarily need to be in a pocket or whatever. I had a bit of the material left over from that, so I made some little key rings or key fobs. Don't know if that's in focus. Maybe? And it's just, I just folded the material over the key ring and sewed it down, and I don't know what I'm going to do with these. They may be given away to people in the future, or freebies if people order stuff from me or what have you. If you know me in real life and you'd like one, just give me a shout, you can have it. If you want a bunch of them, I can make more. I don't know what to do with the rest of the tweed that I've got, because there is quite a bit. One idea I did have, and I did try, was doing English paper piecing to sew the material together to then make something bigger out of it. But the trouble that I had with that is it's very thick material. I've never tried English paper piecing before, and I feel like I should probably try it with a normal weight quilting material first, get the hang of it that way, and then move on to using a thicker material. So I might not do anything with it for a while. I might end up doing that original idea at some point, or I might make completely different things altogether. And then the last thing, I haven't finished this, everything else I finished. I started a slouch beanie in this yarn. Originally I was going to make a scarf with it, with a lacy pattern, but the pattern wouldn't show up very well. So I decided to completely change up and make a hat instead. It's basically the same principles as the crochet beanie that I made. I did 15, 16 stitches for back and forth, just knitting for the brim, I suppose it would be the brim. And then I've gone into each stitch around, done some increases, and I'm going to knit it till it's nice and high, and then do the decreases to the for the closure. I really love this yarn. It's so cute. I've got another 3 balls of yarn from the same person who dyed this, and I'm not sure what I'm going to make with them all, but I will think of something. But yeah, I'm really, really happy with how this is going at the moment. So that's it for December. It's the 31st today. I'm hoping to get this video out today as well, if I can get the editing done. I do have future craft plans for the coming year. So I have got a small rigid heddle loom coming. That was a Christmas present from my other half. We couldn't order it before Christmas because when we were thinking about it, they'd closed up the shop for Christmas period, which is absolutely fair. So a little late Christmas present for me coming hopefully sometime this week. I also bought a little gold work set from Hand and Lot. I'm a bit intimidated by it, so I haven't started it yet. I will start it at some point though. I want to make a couple of marmalade sandwiches out of yarn because my auntie, she's got a Paddington bear that she's had for a long while, since she was a child, and she recently got a new hat for him because the previous hat had been lost. And seeing my auntie over Christmas and talking to her about it, I thought it'd be nice to make a little marmalade sandwich for him because he doesn't have one at the moment. So I've ordered some yarn which arrived this morning, in fact, so I will probably start working on that this afternoon. Or I might wait until tomorrow just so it's nice and neat for the end of the month. I hope that everyone has had a lovely festive season, whatever you've done and whoever you spent it with. Hopefully the new year will bring some lovely stuff for everyone. I'm not usually one for making New Year's resolutions, and this year is no different from that. But everyone that is making them, I hope that you succeed in them and that you have a lovely 2025. And I will see you next year.